Hi, everybody, and welcome back to our Holistic Health and Wellness podcast. My name is Coach Val Fiott for Perfect Personal Training. I want to talk with you today about osteoporosis, and by extension, that includes osteopenia, which is basically just a less severe version of osteoporosis. And I want you to be able to better understand what a natural solution can look like and how you can tackle this more naturally on your own versus the bisphosphonates, which are commonly the first medicated line of defense that is generally prescribed. Now, of course, none of this is medical direction by any means. I want you to know I'm not an MD and that I'm not here to tell you what to do because everybody has very different needs. Instead, the purpose of this video is informational. I want you to just have a better grasp on what a natural solution can look like. And I'm going to give you some solid tangibles that can really change your life if you take these to heart. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about bisphosphonates and what taking those can mean for you as well. So again, I'm not an MD and this is not medical advice. I'm just here to give you some information. All right, all that said, before we get into all the details, please be sure to like and subscribe so more people see this video and so you get more videos from our channel about your long-term health and wellness and longevity. All right, so all that said, let me just give you a quick moment here to understand my background with osteoporosis. So certainly we studied it way back in 1994 when I was first a part of the exercise science program all those 30 years ago. And that same year, I was also first getting my initial certifications as a personal trainer. Now, back then, when you're relatively new to the world of exercise science, we definitely touch on the exercise prescription and even some nutritional components that will improve bone mineral density, but we didn't go that deeply into it. It's a college program where we're dealing with every kind of medical problem that there is. And so, frankly, we'd have a brief chapter here and there on osteoporosis. And in the certifications, we hardly talked about it at all. So that was the case way back then, 30 years ago. Now, I went on as a personal trainer to work with some people who were in their 60s and 70s over those next few years into the early 2000s or so, mid 2000s even. And I was able to implement some of the science that I understood to improve T-scores significantly. There was one client I remember really well. She's still a client today. She, way back then, was in her late 60s. And she had had pretty bad osteoporosis. In fact, she was a cancer survivor, and she had lost a lot of bone mineral density along the way. Now, after only a few short months, I want you to know how incredible this was for her life. In just a few short months of training 3 days a week with me, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we were able to radically improve bone mineral density. Most of the bones that were in osteopenia had gotten normal, and the ones that were in osteoporosis had either gotten to normal also, or at least improved osteopenia. So we were making a lot of progress. And it was only a few short months of strength training 3 days a week for about an hour. And really, in that hour, we only strength trained about a half hour of it. And I can't say, although she worked very hard, I can't say that she checked off all of the clinical boxes that we'd want. There were still a few lifestyle components that were to be desired that could have been better. And those, of course, could have led to even better outcomes for her bones. So anyway, so that's what I was seeing back then. Now, by 2010, I'd become the corporate health and wellness director for one of Michigan's largest retirement communities, where the average age of the residents was 88 years old. So you can believe that almost everybody there had at least some osteopenia. It's very rare to live in an environment like that and to have that kind of diet and to be 88 on average and to not have at least some weak bones. So my job there was to get everybody stronger and healthier in all ways. And I can't even begin to tell you what great improvements we saw in bone mineral density for people who would engage in the lifestyle change and the programs that I was putting together in my department. So let's now weigh the risks and the pros and the cons between taking a bisphosphonate or doing things more naturally. And again, in a moment, I'm going to explain to you what doing things naturally looks like. But first, let's start with the bisphosphonates. So with bisphosphonates, they are a synthetic drug, right? They're something that's abnormal, that the body's not prepared for, and that's getting into your bloodstream, and that's influencing all your physiological processes. Now, there is some clinical risk of toxicity to the pancreas and also to the liver, and there's some other talk as well, but those are the two that I would really hone in on. So this is not without its risk. And if you're already on multiple medications, the other thing to consider is that as you get into more meds, we start to run more risks of things going wrong. Oftentimes it's manifested as balance issues, but Basically, there's just more fighting it out in your body. So we lose some efficacy from medications in some cases because the body can only have so much upregulating and downregulating and so much change going on from all these different influences from different drugs. So I would say that the more drugs you're on, the more you may want to talk with your doctor and consider going a more natural approach. And of course, if you're not on any drugs and if you just feel like exercise and lifestyle change are just nothing that you can imagine yourself sticking with, and if you're just not in that state of change psychologically, where you're ready to start making the lifestyle changes that I'm going to explain in a moment, then yeah, you might just want to say it's worth any kind of risk to take a drug that's generally considered safe. Again, at the end of the day, you're all going to have different belief systems, you're going to have different psychology, you're going to have different time management throughout your day and different responsibilities. So, of course, talk with your doctor. You and your doctor will make the best choice. This podcast is for informational purposes only. So now let's give you all the details as to what a healthy living program looks like to improve bone mineral density. This is the part I really can't wait for. Before I get into it, please make sure if you didn't already, like and subscribe to the channel. I want you to get more great videos like this. Okay, that said, there's 4 key elements that make up the totality of lifestyle change. Okay, 4 major elements: your sleep science, your hydration, your nutrition, and your exercise. Now, there are other components too, like stress management, of course. Your state of mind is going to matter a lot. We're not going to get into some of the deeper level nuanced components in this video, but in this podcast, let's talk about those 4 and what you can start doing immediately, okay? So first, nutrition. There are a lot of variables to nutrition. Obviously, calcium is a big one. I'm going to put vitamin D in this list too, even though technically your vitamin D is a result of being in the sun. Let's be honest, geographically, a lot of people can't get enough sun. Time of day matters a lot too. It's not just any time the sun is out, but you need the right time of day to be able to create vitamin D. So long story short, I would consider vitamin D to basically be a supplement at this point in order to really confidently get it into your body. Even then, I have to tell you that when you're taking vitamin D as a supplement, your gut may not absorb it and put it to use very well. So I do recommend follow-up blood work within a couple of months of starting a vitamin D supplement if you choose to start one. See if it's actually working. If you're in a deficiency still, then of course we're going to need to come up with something else. We're going to need to work on your gut health or get you out into the sun if your geography will allow for that to actually create vitamin D. But lots of components to your nutrition. Protein is going to matter a lot when it comes to building back your bone mineral density, and it's going to matter to building the muscle to give you better, safer workouts so that you can put your bones under the stresses that they're going to need. And I'll explain that in just a moment as well. Now, in terms of hydration, everybody's going to have different needs based on their body weight and their activity level. In general, I would say first try to avoid tap water. You're not going to want the fluoride. That has not been found to be very helpful for bone mineral density. And if you're tracking your water intake, try to get your body weight in pounds divided by 2 and make that the ounces of water you consume per day as a starting point. Now, you'll need more if you're consuming caffeine or any diuretics. And also, you might need more if you're very active. The more active you are, the more body water you're going to lose and want to replenish. That said, if you're eating a lot of high water foods like fruits and vegetables, and if your diet is primarily plant-based, then actually you might have a need for a little bit less water. That can be an influence the other way because you're going to get a lot of water from those foods. So there's a lot to look at. Again, I really recommend get a top health coach. You can work with myself or we can schedule you with a perfect personal trainer, but work with someone who really understands this, who can get down to the nitty-gritty of what you're going to need. Now let's talk sleep science. Okay, sleep, there's a lot to it, to getting it done right. Sleep is not as simple as 8 hours a night and then feeling refreshed. Here I recommend you consider a few things. For one, many people are magnesium deficient, which is not good for the bones and it's not good for sleep. And so for that reason, I would say find out if you're at all magnesium deficient. If you're even close to magnesium deficiency, I would definitely supplement before bed. Turns out human beings don't absorb an oral supplement of magnesium all that well. We have a harder time putting it to use than if it was sprayed on. So I do suggest using a spray on. I personally use a company called Ease. I've used them for many years, and I just simply spray that on before bed. It's a fantastic way to get magnesium into the body if you are at all deficient. So keeping the same bedtime and wake time. Now, I know this is tough for people, especially if you travel, but this does a lot to make sleep more productive. I'm not saying you're going to necessarily feel any better, But when your body knows what time it is to go to sleep and what time it is to wake up, you're more locked in naturally. It's a better way to be, and you generally will find more restorative and productive sleep, even if you don't necessarily feel any better. Another thing I recommend is for about 30 minutes before bed, minimal technology, preferably no cell phones and nothing with blue light, preferably less EMF exposure, and try to be at a point where you can get into a state of calm without the electronics and slowly, gradually turn off the lights before you get to bed for a good 30 minutes or so. If you're at, let's say, 9:55 and you've got TVs on and lots of loud noise and stimulus and you're looking at your cell phone, and then at 10 o'clock you shut everything off and go to bed, you're not going to have as restorative of sleep as you could otherwise. So there's just a few points on sleep. I'll be doing a new podcast getting further into sleep science in the near future. Okay, so now this brings us to exercise science. Now, exercise science is so critical when it comes to building backbone mineral density. Let me give you the details that are going to be particularly helpful. The end game goal is to reach about 80 to 85% of a muscle's capacity of its maximum strength when you're conditioning the muscle that surrounds a weak bone. If you know which of your bones are osteoporotic or an osteopenia, then we can target a strength training program that goes after those areas a little bit more so. If you don't know specifically, if all you really got back from your MD was that you have osteoporosis in general, then we just need a total body strength program. And frankly, that's better anyway. That's the better way to do it. And so in a case like that, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the strength of all the major muscles, and therefore by slowly, gradually building up over weeks or even months to the point where they can push or pull about 80% of the muscle's capacity, that becomes the point, clinically speaking, where we're at the best opportunity to rebuild bone mineral density. Now, that's not to say that you cannot rebuild bone mineral density at far less intensities. We've seen that too. What I'm saying is that as an aggregate, if I'm to look at all the really unbiased, deepest science regarding bone mineral density improvement through exercise, that's generally going to be the pinnacle that what you want to aim for. And if we get lucky, we might see bone mineral density improvements at much lesser intensities. I've certainly seen that happen quite a bit. I would just say that if you're at, say, 50% or 60% or 70%, and you're not yet seeing bone mineral density improvements, if you're still in osteoporosis or osteopenia, I would say that either there's another lifestyle component that's missing, the nutrition or the sleep or something else is not quite right, or it's because we haven't quite reached that level of heaviness yet on the bones and sustainability. And so that can take months to build to. And the reason for that is that we have to consider when you start lifting weights or getting into any kind of strength training, it's not just the muscles that are performing the movement to put the stress on the bones, but the joints have to be strong enough to support it. And like your lower back has to be strong enough to keep you erect and upright. And if you're standing, your legs need to be strong enough. So there's a lot of supportive components that all have to be built up within that process as well. We can't just dive into the heavy training. Even your heart in many cases won't be strong enough for that. But I want you to know that if you're a beginner, or that if heavy strength training seems really foreign to you or something that's really outside your belief system, there's a lot you can do to cognitively, and we do this in life coaching and in psychology, to cognitively start to kind of change your identity a little bit and to see the value and how you can dip your toe in slowly and very progressively go from just touching on it a couple of times a week lightly to slowly, gradually building your efficacy and your adherence to the point where you're doing 2-3 or so days a week for 30 or 40 minutes. And a lot of times that's all it takes. And then you can build back your bone mineral density. You don't have to put bisphosphonates or anything else in your body at that point if you can improve your bone mineral density naturally. So anyway, that is the just kind of in a nutshell how you can go about doing things naturally to rebuild bone mineral density. And as I've explained, it's not like in my career I've seen this a couple of times. Okay, this is a very, very, very common thing. It is not unheard of whatsoever to rebuild bone mineral density naturally. And again, if you feel it's better for you, if you feel like the risk reward is there, then certainly talking with your doctor, you might come up with a bisphosphonate that's going to be the answer for you, and that may not have any kind of negative consequences for you. So I hope this has been a helpful and informative video regarding the risk reward on this topic of osteoporosis and how to manage it. Please let me know if you have any questions. You can comment down below. I'd love to get your comments and feedback. If you like the video, please be sure to click like and to subscribe so you get more videos like this. And again, you can reach out to me individually. My phone number and contact information and websites are here in the description. So you can get in touch with me and we can have a more private conversation that's more based around your own lifestyle and your own personal needs and your likes and dislikes. And we'll come up with a solution for you. All right, everybody, I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day.